Much for joining us here at Voice of Uganda Radio. You are listening to Miss Brenda here on this beautiful Sunday day for Freedom at Hand. Thank you so much, as always, for being a part of the program. And I have to continue by saying that it is in the early morning here where I'm at, but I'm sure that it's evening and afternoon in some of your places. So whatever time zone you're in, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and being a part of this program today. Hopefully we've all survived the first part of our holidays. I know we have New Year's coming up, which is going to be a big one for most people, but I hope that you've all enjoyed your holidays with your family and friends, and thank you so much for being a part of Voice Uganda Radio on Christmas Day and the programs that we brought to you then. We don't want to be on a platform where we don't reach out to you at every opportunity we can. And so whether a holiday comes in, a birthday, or whatever happens in our personal lives, we still try to be what we need to be for the Ugandan people, to bring a voice to the voiceless and to bring about friendly conversation in which we can all partake in and be a part of. So, Voice Uganda, thanks you so much this year for just being a part of the radio programs, the listening audience. We have grown tremendously in Fadu, and a lot of things are going to take off with that in 2014. We've grown a lot in our listening audience. We have people from globally around the world that listens to Voice of Uganda Radio, and we're very, very thankful for that because, when we started the platform, there's so many other avenues out there. We didn't really realize how much we would be needed or where we would fall at in the scope of that, but you have definitely come on board and been a part of all of our programs. You have definitely shown us that we were welcomed in the community, even though there were other avenues out there like ours. And we have been embraced very, very warmly. And so we appreciate you, our listening audience, and those of you who stand behind us and support us in everything that we do here at Voice Uganda Radio. And especially for everything I do here on the American platforms, because our American audience continues to grow as well, and we continue to reach out in whatever way that we can to include them in and allow them to be a part of the conversation as well. I'm very, very thankful, and I have to put this out here before we start Freedom at Hand this morning. I'm very thankful for all of the listeners who have started to feel comfortable to be able to call in and be a part of the conversation. For months and months, I knew that I had an audience there, but they just were there and a part of the listening audience. But I'm thankful that you're part of the conversation that we're starting to have here. And I tell you why, because as we get ready to move into 2014, one of the things that is very important to me is that because the American audience starts to grow, because we have listeners that we invite out of Washington, D.C., out of the senators and the Congress offices there, it's important for the American people, it's important for those who are on board from Washington, D.C. to hear your voices and understand what you feel and how you feel about not only Uganda, but the country and moving forward and where we fall in line in helping the Ugandan people move forward. Because there's so many programs on Voice Uganda Radio that are not in English. And so the ones that are, I'm very appreciative that you're starting to feel a little more comfortable and a little more at ease to call in and be a part of the conversation so that your voices can be heard on even a wider scale. So thank you so, so very much for that. Here at Freedom at Hand, we really tried to dissect, and I really shared a lot about great leaders in our society, ones in which we could understand and ones that we could embrace because we knew a part of the history ourselves. When we talked about Nelson Mandela, when we talked about President Lincoln, when we talked about the Kennedys, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, Dr. King, Gandhi. I mean, we have, and the list goes on and on and on of some of the people that I've used here on Freedom at Hand to help the people understand that where you're at is not unfamiliar with the growth of the world and the things that we've all had to overcome and conquer. I wanted to give some ease and some comfort to the fact that, yes, there have been great leaders and there have been great people, but there were also great leaders and great people who helped to put them to the level in which they were, put them on a platform in which they were able to make a difference in society and make a difference in the world. And today I wanted to take a little bit of a different turn. And in 2014, you're going to see me move in a little different direction also with Freedom at Hand. Because one of the things that we need to do now is, even with the American Connection, I explained on that program that the platform I had in the very beginning for that show, I had to change it up simply because there were so many other things happening in the country there in Uganda. There were so many other things happening in the community of the diaspora throughout that I had to change that up to what we can do now to move forward into what the American Connection is really going to be about later on. Well, that same thing has kind of pierced my heart here with Freedom at Hand. I can put the leaders out there. I can tell you their stories. I can tell you their victories, their failures, their defeats, how they conquered, and the great people that they became. But we need to make that more realistic to what is happening in Uganda now and what is taking place there now. So Freedom at Hand is going to change up a little bit to put the people in the freedom at hand position as to how we feel that we can encourage the people themselves. Through nonviolence, through cooperation, through whatever democracy exists, even though we know in Uganda there's basically none. To put the power back into the hands of the people, to help them to think about themselves in the roles in which they wish to play in the new democracy and the new freedom of where Uganda can go from this point forward. So I hope that you will be a part of the conversations and still give us your feedback as we continue to build on this platform of what we need to do forward. The youth and structure. We talked a lot, and we had some programs on this radio station that were dedicated towards the youth because we understand and we know the role that they play there in Uganda. And not only in Uganda, when we talk about freedoms and liberties and justice, when we talk about freedom at hand in any country, the youth play a big role in how that moves forward. And we have to make sure that we are giving them the tools and we are giving them everything that we can possibly give them to help them to be successful as the next generation that will move forward into those leadership positions. We understand and we know that the president there in Uganda has a way that he has worn out his welcome. We understand and we know that he's been in a position far, far too long and that there is no leadership. Leadership has really deteriorated there in the country. So one has to ask themselves that who are the youth in Uganda looking to for leadership? And those who are in those leadership roles, are they there to lead or are they simply looking for people to follow them? Because there's a difference, and there's a big difference in that, and we will talk about that, and we will hopefully understand that a little more by the time we get to the end of the program here at Freedom at Hand. Yesterday, the professor talked about the Bill of Rights and how it limited government power, limited the government as to what they could do to the people and gave power back to the people to a certain degree so that there was protection under that. We're going to touch on that a little bit today, too, because it feeds into the youth. And what are we teaching them and what direction are we helping them to go in? I mean, because it's not enough that we can't just beat up on them for where they're at and what's going on without looking at what direction are they following from the country they're in, who are their leaders, and how are they participating in making sure that these individuals are growing up to be the people that we would want to lead the country forward someday. For those of us who are mothers, and let me say thank you so much to the female audience, because I noticed that we're having a lot more women calling in and participating in these shows here on Voice of Uganda Radio, and it is music to my ears to see the women start to come into their own, not to just allow the men to be the ones that have a voice or say so here on Voice of Uganda Radio, but for the women as well. We have to rise up. This is not just the fight for the men. This is a fight for men, women, and children. It's a fight for true democracy for all of us. So we all need to be a part of the conversation. So I'm very, very thankful for the women who are starting to feel the need to call and to be on board with what's going on here at Voice of Uganda Radio. When we have children, when we have babies, a baby starts to learn from the time that it is born it starts to learn and starts to figure out its surroundings from the day that it is born. When babies are born, they start to try to find things that are familiar, things that are a comfort, things that are something that they can relate to. And we don't know what goes on in their minds, but we do understand later on as time goes on. Um, when a mother has a child and that child understand every day that that mother goes into that room to pick up that child starts to bond with that mother a little more each and every day. When that mother starts to make her move to go into that room because that child is crying, that child starts to realize, oh, if I cry, this person will come to take care of me. Oh, if I need to be changed, this person will come and change me and give me comfort. Oh, if I'm hungry, this person also comes to feed me and spend time with me as I eat my meal. To a degree that that child knows and identifies with that mother at a very, very early stage before we ever know what's developing and what's happening in that child's mind, that child understands and knows that whenever something happens in its life, there are going to be one or two people that are always, always going to be there. Eventually, as time goes on, that child learns that there are other people in its life as well. That doesn't mean it harm, but means for its good and well-being. So that child starts to identify very, very early and starts to feel the love and starts to embrace that relationship and starts to count on that relationship. It puts everything it has into that relationship because that relationship is important to it. So when that mother starts to walk in the direction of that child even has learned the footsteps of the mother. That child knows at a very early age before the mind even develops to tell us what's going on in their mind. They understand the scent of their father. They understand the scent of their mother. They understand the footsteps of their father and the footsteps of their mother. And anyone else who plays a vital role in this child's upbringing and life, there are certain things that the child connects with very, very early on. And usually it's the parents. It's the mother first, and usually the father, and then usually those who are part of the family. As the child gets older, it starts to build up a protection, a circle, as we call it, a circle of family, of people who comforts it and it knows is there for their well-being. When we talk about the development of a child in that state, it is not always pretty and it is not always good because we understand and we know that children grow up in abusive situations too. Children grow up in situations where there is no food. The parent does not come when they cry. They are not always taken care of when they're wet. There is no food when they are hungry. There is no comfort from the person that is their caregiver. So as you can see, it starts to develop the mind very, very early. And you can start to almost see from what the few things that I've shared, how the mind in our youth start to develop. It either develops very healthy and it moves forward in a healthy way, or it starts to develop in a way that's not so healthy as it continues to struggle and continues to find a way to make things comfortable or make things work for them. Sometimes they're given good things where there is food, where there is nurture, where there is comfort, but it doesn't come as readily as it does for some children and some babies. There is abuse that we know that happens when children are born too and in those young states. So what I'm sharing this for is for you to get a mindset of what happens to us very, very early in life that sends us in the direction in which we will go. One would have to look at Hitler and how he was raised. One would have to look at Idi Amin and how he was raised. One would have to look at the sitting president in Uganda right now and how he was raised. One would have to look at any atrocities that have happened throughout the world, whether it was good or whether it's bad. So we can look at the mindset of all of those that we've talked about at Freedom of Hand, or we can look at all of those who have caused harm and damage to people around them and in their lives. There have been stories and there have been people who've talked about it time and time again about what the mindset of the sitting president in Uganda right now, and how some of the stories that have been shared here on Voice Uganda Radio of some of the atrocities and some of the things that he committed even as a youth, even as a young person. I want you to stay here with me, my fellow listeners, because we need to take these directions. It's not always about the bad and the ugly and the things that are happening. It's about what has happened in life to send us and project us in the directions we've gone as well. So on this program and through other programs here on Voice Uganda Radio, people have talked about a lot of the atrocities and a lot of the things that have happened with the sitting president right now when he was a young person, and some of the things that he did that were in most of our minds would paralyze us in fear, and we think, how could a person do such a thing? But for some people, very, very early in their lives, the mindset of who they are has already been set in them, and they become that. And there are things that will never change that. They become very callous. They become very calculating. They become very ruthless. They become very separated from the good or the evil or the just or the unjust of what they do. And these are things that develop very, very early in the mindset of us as children, of us as babies, and as we grow forward from there. When we look at the youth in Uganda and we start to become angry and frustrated at the youth because a lot of people feel like the youth are not moving forward, that the youth are not taking their roles in society and what's happening there in Uganda. That the youth are separated. They're just partying, they're drinking, they're having fun, and they're doing the things that they want to do. But what is the mindset that we put in the youth in Uganda that is causing them to be the way that they are? Because at the end of the day, we all have to take responsibility for the direction of the path of anyone. It may not be us directly that are, it may not be us that has caused that, but it could be the environment in which the youth are growing up that may be causing that and may be sending them in the direction in which they are going. So when we talk about leaders, when we talk about people rising up, when we talk about the great people that we've talked about here on Freedom at Hand and how they became the iconic people that they became, we have to look at the start and where they started from and what led them into the greatness or the not so greatness of who they became. Because we have to look at Hitler and what he did in life, but we also have to look at Gandhi and what he did in life. We also have to look at the start that they had in life. We have to look at the environment in which they grew up in, and how did that environment feed into who they were? How did that environment make them what they were becoming? We understand and we know that the youth in Uganda may not be moving in a direction in which we want them to be. What are the structures there that they're given in order to be able to make a difference, in order to be able to move forward, in order to make a change in their very environment and how they live? Those of us who are outside of Uganda, we already know that there is no true democracy that is happening in the walls of Uganda. So you're talking about a group of youth, you're talking about a group of children and a group of youth who have grown up only knowing the president who is sitting in office right now. So what have we done in order to prepare them? Or are we just allowing those that we have placed in leadership positions to be the role model that these children look at as to what they want to follow? Because one of the things we have to understand and we have to know very, very clearly that those of you who are outside in the diaspora, you understand and you know the corruption, you understand and you know the direction in which the country is headed. You understand and you know in the ways in which the youth are being paralyzed, because we understand and we know, even just in the public management bill that was passed, that their rights and liberties and justices are being taken away from them, and they don't understand that they have the right to fight for those things. They don't understand that they have the right to fight for those things. So what are we, at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to be the structure of what they need to learn and to grow and to move forward? Or are we all just sitting back and saying that this government and the way that it is ruling the people is okay to rule the youth as well? And can we get upset at these children when this is the molding and this is the shaping of who they're becoming because of the government that they live in? It's the same thing. I'm going back to childbirth and when a child is young and what they identify with. We have to understand that very, very early in life, children develop because of what their surroundings are. Now, yes, a lot of these youth have gone on to great schools and they've had people that put money into their education and they've had people to fund them in the direction in which they need to go. But there are a lot who haven't had that. And this sitting president has made sure of that because we know that day by day by day, the system is corroded as far as the education system in Uganda. Teachers are not respected in Uganda. When the teachers had their strike and they stood strong, that was an example for the youth to see, to say, hey, our teachers are fighting back. Our teachers are being strong. Let's follow this and let's see how this plays out. Because they're each and every day through everything that we do as an adult, it has a role model that it plays in the minds of our youth. So what happened in that incident? The children become strong and the youth say, hey, we can stand behind the teachers. This is something that we can stand behind. But negotiators go in. They negotiate behind closed doors and something that there was no Bill of Rights to speak. There was no rights for the teachers and what happened. So now the youth see, oh, okay, they started to fight, but now they're right back where they were. So what does that say about me? What does that say about me moving forward? What does that say about me if I want to stand on the side of democracy, if I want to stand on the side of truth, if I want to stand on the side of liberty and justice, if I want to stand for the rights of the public management bill not being right for me, gay rights not being right, and what's happening to them? They have seen time and time again, those who are in leadership positions, those who are role models, whether you're in government, whether you're teachers, whether you're police officers, whether you're in the military, whether you're the sitting president, any part in his family or wherever you may be, they see time and time again the power taken out of the struggle. So how can we get angry and how can we put the burden on the youth to move forward when we ourselves are not being the example that we need to be for the youth in order for them to move forward? One of the greatest things that happened during civil rights is the people who stood strong and the people who stood firm in what they believed in order to move the country forward, the youth had an example of that strength. And the youth built off of that strength and they moved forward within that strength. The same thing is true for Nelson Mandela. One has to say the life of Nelson Mandela and his strength and his courage, who rallied behind him? Who was the reason for his freedom and for him moving forward? The reason for his freedom and the reason for moving him forward simply was for the youth. The youth are the people that rallied behind him because young people are drawn to strengthen people. They're drawn to courage. They're drawn to what makes you strong, what makes you different, what makes you stand out, what makes you the person that you are. Why are you a leader? Why do people want to follow you? And those are the shoes that they want to fill. And those are the people that they want to say, oh, these are the people that are making a difference in my life and in the structure of life and in the direction in which I want to move. So when the American people started to write to me on behalf of what had happened there with the teachers, we knew that when the government diffused what was going on with the teachers, we knew that it would be a step backwards, not just for the teachers, but all of those who looked to see what would happen. Would they be victorious or would they once again fail? The youth in Uganda over and over and over again, time and time again, are seeing the failures of the country. They're not seeing the victories of which is happening in the country and which is moving things forward. Now, we all understand and we know that this government and this regime there's nothing positive that's going to come out of it. There's nothing positive that the youth are going to ever see because this man time and time again opposes fear in the place of anything that there could be faith and victory to move the people forward. And we have to understand because we at one point in time in our lives were youth ourselves. And we knew that we were shaped by the people that were around us. There's no one of any of us listening to this program today that could not say that we were not shaped by the things around us. It made us go to college. It made us study certain things in college. It made us want to have the jobs that we have in life. It made us want to be entrepreneurs or to save our money or to become great people. It made us charitable people who would give to organizations around us to move other people forward or to help other people. It made us a part of wanting to be a part of the farmland. How do we feed America? How do we impose laws that work for everybody? Everything around us shaped us into what we are today. It made us the greatness of who we are, even if we only stand on the platform of ourselves and the world doesn't know us and the world doesn't know who we are and the world doesn't know the good that we do or the good that we contribute. It still shaped us and made us who we are so that we are contributing part of moving forward. Can we honestly say that that is happening for the youth in Uganda and that that is something that we're giving them and that that is something that we're moving forward with them? Because at the end of the day, we're all responsible for each other. I talk about the international community a lot because internationally, globally, we are all responsible for each other. I'm responsible for the people of Uganda, just like the people of Uganda are responsible for the people of Kenya, just like the people of Kenya are responsible for the people in the Netherlands. And those are responsible for the people in Canada. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all responsible for each other because the one thing that we have in common is that we live and we grow because we see and we understand from our environments that we are creating around us. And what is the environment and what is it that we are creating around the youth in Uganda? We are allowing one man to dictate how they see themselves and how they see themselves forward. He even made comments as to some of the things in which the youth are studying there in the universities and how it was something that shouldn't even be offered in a university. And yet we know and we understand that every curriculum that is taught at a university level, it's taught because it's the well-roundness, it's the balancing of all of us. Like I explained in one of my shows, not all of us can be honeybees. Some of us have to be the birds of the air. Some of us have to be the critters that crawl along the ground. Some of us have to be the flowers in which are pollinated. We all play a role. If we were all honeybees, what would be the purpose of us being in society? How would we then grow and how would we then move forward? So no matter what the university offers and no matter what the universities teach, it teaches that for a purpose. It teaches that for a reason. It teaches that for the well-roundness of things. There are people, and you are those of you who are in the diaspora, you understand and you know this because there are people who have degrees that are not even working within those degrees in the jobs in which they're in. Yet, they are a vital part of what makes that company move forward and what makes that company grow. It's the diversity of who we are that makes us great. It's not that we all think alike. It's because we all have the right to think differently. Bring that to the table at the end of the day, look at everybody's views of it and opinions, and move forward from there. The youth in Uganda do not have this. They're seeing one side of a government and the way that it works. They see the struggles come along, they see the fights come along, but they see them very soon put out. The great leaders that are placed there to show them the example and show them the way in which they need to go, this government stomps it out time and time again. We know that with the Lord Mayor. Look at the Lord Mayor of Kampala City. And the youth were looking at that. And the youth were trying to figure out, how does this work on my behalf? And not only how this works on my behalf, but where do we go from here? They're looking at and they're seeing these things. They see the power and they see that and they're attracted to that. But then shortly after that, they see what happens because of that power acting out to become an individual entity. They see time and time again that this government continues to place fear in the hearts of people. So what happens with the youth there in Uganda? They start to act out. They're drinking, they're smoking, they're partying, they're doing what they want to do because they're thinking, I might as well do what I want to do because if I try to do anything to make a difference, these are the things that are happening to me. And no one is listening to me. And no one is holding on to my thoughts and my ideas of how I want to move forward. And if I make that publicly known, these are the things that happen to me. And do I want these things to happen to me? And do I want to live in a world like this? We talked about this with Selena and her poisoning and her death. A beautiful young woman who rose up to be the example for the youth. And Nabende, what happened to her, Selena Nabende? She rose up. She spoke her mind. She spoke truth. And we know that we all know that she spoke truth in her words and what she was saying and what she was sharing with the Ugandan youth and the Ugandan people. And people were proud and people stood behind her and people said, yes, we got to stand for change. We cannot allow the government to continue to treat us like this. There is corruption. There are things going on. And what are we going to do about it? And all too soon, they saw that that light was put out as well. So now you put fears in the heart of people that this is what happens and this is what could happen to me if I speak out. Yet we get angry at the youth in Uganda because we don't feel like they're doing enough. But we have to get behind them at the end of the day to say, every person that has risen up in Uganda to show them the way forward has been a light that has been put out too soon. We've got to turn the lights back on in Uganda. We have to continue to show leadership and we have to continue to show guidance. We have to show the people a way forward. We have to continue to do that. But we understand and we know that every time this has happened, these are the things that have happened. So we have to ask ourselves, those of us in the United States of America and those of us who are in the diaspora, what are we doing to bring about change so that these things stop happening so that people can continue to rise up to be the example of what they want to be for the youth there in Uganda, for them to be able to move forward? Because I think there are great, great leaders in Uganda right now in the youth. I think there are people who are willing to step up and be the greatness of what Uganda needs to move forward. But fear paralyzes them once again. And what are we doing on the outside to liberate the people on the inside? Because we cannot sit in the diaspora. We cannot sit here in the United States of America in our Congress and in our Senates and wherever we are in leadership positions. We cannot sit aside and say, well, this is on the hands of the people when we know that we are a part of making them stronger and moving them forward. But what are we doing to help them? And what are we doing to move them forward? Are we just being a part of the problem or are we trying to be a part of the solution? Is what we have to ask ourselves at the end of the day. I like to think that those of us here at Voice of Uganda Radio are trying to be a part of the solution to move the country forward. We had someone call in. They didn't call in on the air. They called in later on when we were off the air to say thank you to Voice of Uganda Radio for telling the truth, for being the voice of the Ugandan people, for being the only ones that are saying what the Ugandan people need to hear, because in the media, in the radios, in the freedom of press, all of that has been taken away from the people of Uganda. So this young individual called to say thank you for telling and saying the things that we know to be true here in Uganda, even though no one else is saying it. And we have to embrace that, and we have to be thankful for these youths to say, we are part of your struggle, and we understand and we know. I see that my co-host is coming in now. Dorothy is starting to join the program, so I want to go to her and say good morning and welcome her on board. Good morning, Dorothy, and how are you?
I'm good, Miss Brenda. I'm good, and how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for calling in this morning.
Well, you are welcome, but thank you so much for such a beautiful topic. You know, that is because that is where the heart of Uganda is. And I have been listening in, and I couldn't wait. So it is such, and thank you very much for doing such a fabulous job. I mean, the points well stated. So thank you so much, Miss Brenda.
You're welcome. What do you want to say on the topic? I've got another call coming in. I'm gonna go to him because I know that you're gonna be with me for the rest of the show. So let's listen in and see what this caller has to say. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, good morning, Miss Brenda. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to you guys. Are you there?
Yes, yes. How are you?
Yes,
And
yes,
thank you
yes.
so much.
Yes, yes. My reason for calling is to remind our listeners the biggest problem we have and the biggest task we have in order to remove the government of Uganda. As you are aware, the gate bill was passed by Parliament, and we've been talking about this for quite some time. And it was passed and it's waiting for Museveni's signature. But as
Yes.
you've heard or you've read, Museveni is now backtracking on the bill, which is a good thing. That he's not going to sign and he's going to take the bill to make sure that everything's okay. And if not, he's going to send it back in Qatar to view. If not appropriate, according to him, he will not sign. And I hope he doesn't sign the bill because everybody deserves the right, the freedom to life, and nobody should be included for life for being gay. But having said that, all this came about not because Museveni really cares about the freedom of gays. All this came about not because Museveni is so much concerned about the morals of the generation in Uganda, as he says. This has happened because of what we have been telling Ugandans all along, that if you're waiting for somebody to come out and help you uproot Museveni, you're going to wait until he dies. The reason I'm saying this is that so many governments the world over, the United States, Secretary of State of U.S., Secretary Kerry, UK, Australia, India, you name it, they have been calling Museveni, putting pressure on him not to sign the bill. And guess what? Museveni has backtracked because these are the only people that he listens to. And because he's serving their own interests, they don't care about what's going on in Uganda. We had so many people being killed. A lot of people have lost their land. A lot of people have been crying out for help. We have images, we have pictures, we have videos indicating that the government of Uganda has done more work on other Ugandans who are not homosexual, but he has been killing a lot of people, heterosexual and homosexual. But never other countries raise a single issue about Museveni's human rights in Uganda. Now, if anybody believes that Museveni is going to go on his own, or that the United States or Europe or European community will come and tell Museveni time's up, it's not going to happen. This has exactly proved our point since we've been on air, that the West does not care as long as Museveni is taking care of their own interests. My fellow Ugandans who are listening, I want to remind you what the former U.S. President said, George Bush Jr. He said, the United States does not have friends. We have interests. As long as those interests are being taken care of by Museveni, the rest is history. You can scream, you can dance, you can yell. Museveni can kill you. To the West, it doesn't matter as long as it's representing their interests. It is time that we walk up and start fighting for ourselves. Get rid of Museveni. Museveni is going nowhere. As I've said, that the West, the East, most of the countries have called Museveni regarding the bill, not to sign it. It would be a good thing that he doesn't sign it. But at the same time, it has revealed who really controls who really controls the government in Uganda. It's not Museveni. Museveni is there because he's keeping the West interest in place. You and me, we are left to fend on ourselves. Other countries will come on our aid if we stand up as a unit and we start fighting. Then you will know, and that's the only time you will see that the West is yes come on our side. But for now, As long as you are silent, forget it. Because as the saying say, my silence will not help other people get killed. So let's get together, guys, and get this ball rolling. I have had so many Ugandans saying, oh, you guys are just talking. Oh, you guys are not doing anything. I want to ask those very same Ugandans, what have they done for the country? What have they done to start talking? Yes, Voice of Uganda Radio has started a voice. Yes, we might be talking, but you, what have you done? People have been saying we need to get together, we need to come together. Well, guess what? Coming together starts with you. You cannot tell you we need to get together. Who are we? You must be part of the process. You must be part of the conversation, as Mrs. Brenda always says. It's time we stop saying let's get together, especially people from the central. Uniting starts with you, who's listening to us. Getting rid of misunderstanding starts with you, who's listening to me. So it's time we got our house order. Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda.
Thank you so much, Musana, for calling in and sharing that. And he's absolutely right. It's what we're saying here, Dorothy. I mean, we've got to stand behind the youth. We have to start to be the example. We have to do something. We can't not just do anything. Go ahead, Dorothy, and make your comments.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Brenda. And I would like to thank so much the previous caller. Well, he had made some very fabulous points. As you heard him, as we all know, all countries have interest, and the caller is right. But what I know and what I've seen, at least the past, 6, 7 years, for anybody, if you are Miss Brenda, if somebody was walking alongside the road and he saw that people looked suspicious, they started attacking, they started chasing. If you keep quiet and you don't scream and you don't run and you don't fight for your life, people might not know that you are in that trouble. Sometimes people might see, but human instincts is like, well, I don't want to get myself in trouble. After all, nobody did see. But I know here, at least in the United States, there is a law. If somebody was in trouble, if somebody had a heart attack, you, a bystander or a passerby, you are responsible for yourself, human person. If you are really sighted and you did not do anything to help, my dear, you are in trouble. What I know about the United States, for those who have come up and screamed and shouted really loud to fight for their lives, they have been helped. So for me, as the previous caller stated, that we need to step forward. Uganda is for Ugandans. Unless the Ugandans start shouting, they start to do what they need to do. Even these other countries that we will see that we are fed up, that surely we need to be helped. But before we do that, before we keep asking one question after another, what have you done, what have you done, what have you done? He has said it. Voice of Uganda Radio is here. FADU is here. People are sacrificing time. People are spending a lot of hours to do research and do ABCD. But until you get up and you come and join, instead of sitting there and say, what are you doing? What have you done? Well, it starts with you. So that is the same with our friends and those countries we see. Until we get out and they start doing what we are supposed to do and challenge them, then they will say they didn't know, even though they know. They will say, you Ugandan people, you didn't fail. So we need to take a lead, and I'm sure if we do so, other countries will come on board, because we have seen it happening.
Yeah, because Dorothy, speak on this, if you will. I mean, what you're talking about here is compassion. Somewhere, the Ugandan people have lost compassion for one another. If you look at the United States and any of the other global free worlds around, people have compassion for other people and the hurts and pains that are inflicted upon them, and that's what brings about change. If you lose compassion for your very people, then you're as disconnected as the president is from the torture and the things that he's doing to the Ugandan people, especially the youth.
That's right, Miss Brenda. It is very right. Miss Brenda, there are so many Ugandans in the outside Uganda, and the majority of them, they know exactly why they are not home. We know why we are not.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So the truth is that we have no compassion. We have no love for Uganda.
And let me just say something, because I want you to feed in on this, because you're headed right in a good direction where I want you to go. When you said the majority of Ugandans living outside of the country, they know, and they have to come to grips with their own with their own conscience as to why they're not living in that country. So if they come to grips with that, they can only have compassion for the people that are still there.
Exactly. I have said it time and time again that what do you think you did give to God? When you are in that line, when you waited for the visa, when you are looking for money for the ticket, yes, some people will say, well, it was my troubles. I troubled to do so and so. Then it's up to me to do what I want. But I mean, are you special? Not every Ugandan can afford to leave Uganda. And if they leave, so then what? What is left of Uganda? So what I'm saying is that at one time you prayed to God. Your prayers were answered. Somehow you made it, however hard it might have been. Even they might be even struggling at this real day and time as we are talking. It is not easy. We know that. But when you got here, after suffering so much, after running out from the wrath of Museveni, what have you done?
Yes.
What have you done? You decided not to look back. You decided not to care. Because in this Brenda, we are many. Okay?
Yeah.
The youth in Uganda, I will stand and say so. First of all, they have a lot of challenges. They have been robbed everything as you know it from their childhood. If you are 27 years and under, or 35, because when Museveni came to power, they were children. We didn't know much, okay? But the man ever since he came to power is calculating how can I make this youth fail? How can I scrub the education system? How can I brainwash them?
Yes.
That at least primary universal education, you hear 70% they are drop out. Where do they go? Where they go to Makerere, what are they taught? They even have spies in the classroom, watching the instructors. What are they teaching these people? They are some reasonable youth. They are those who wanted to make a difference.
And Dorothy, that goes right back to what I was saying. When the youth in Uganda, there are no role models. There's no one for them to look up to. And every time there is someone, they see these type of things happen. And time again, the fear sets in more so than anything else.
Miss Brenda, let me tell you this. The government of Uganda, they know pretty well that the youth are the future of any country.
Yes.
Those younger trees are the future of any forest anywhere. And I'll tell you, they have done everything in their power to make sure they intimidate in any possible way. Let it be education. Those boys and girls have been arrested. They have been beaten. They have taken, have you seen when the youth, most especially those in Makerere, every single time they say that, no, this is not right. Do you know how many tear gas trucks end up at Makerere? Do you know how many bullets got off? Do you know how many have been shot? Do you know how many have broken legs, busted skulls?
Yes. And
do you know we have more spies in Makerere and all those other colleges than students? All those international students, most especially if they are from Rwanda, Burundi, Sudan. My dear,
And
we have more spies than students. And okay, Ms. Brenda, go ahead.
No, and I can understand why they're putting the spies there, because education is very powerful. We know that to be true in every country, no matter where you look. And if he's not worried about the ones that are in the clubs and in the bars or doing the other things that they're doing, his focus is on the ones that are educating themselves, simply because those are the ones that pose the biggest threat to him.
He knows in history those boys and girls, they have changed the world. They have marched. That's why, it is true, Ms. Brenda. He has to concentrate on them. Even those few in the streets, they have suffered. Some of them come out, and that's why you see tear gas. That's why they shoot them. And the head of the state will order to leave those bodies in the streets so that the youth can see. Ms. Brenda, all these things are intended for the youth. Never to try again. When they punish, it has to be well done. Somebody who can't fight back, they are beaten until they die. Why is that so? That is intimidation.
Yes.
If Selena spoke up, she stood up to speak. She said the truth. She was a youth who would, even in the nightmares we have in Uganda, where even the old ones have decided to think like youth or like 15-year-olds because they have to compromise in order to afford something to eat. But Uganda would challenge them and they say, no, it's not supposed to be that way.
Yes.
We fight for the common person. But the government of Uganda is allergic to such people. They are allergic to such youth. They poison them, they kill them, they torture them. Can you tell me that somebody will ever be tortured and beaten and mutilated to death because at one time they supported the opposition? The government is looking to kill them, to torture them. They fled to London. Then they are deported back. And the government of Uganda decided to kill this boy because I supported an opposition. Ms. Brenda, these are the challenges of the youth they are missing. Not that they don't want. The majority see.
Yes.
Until we give them security, until we lead them, they can trust us. They have been outside on the streets. They have been shut at.
Because this is what I said at the beginning of the show, and you can comment on this, Dorothy. When I talked about a child at birth and how the structure of who that child becomes starts very, very early. So we're talking about a generation of youth who have only known the sitting president who's in now, who have only known torture, pain. Anyone who rises up against him die. There's no explanation. There's no justice. Their freedoms and rights are taken away, and no one in the country is saying anything. I mean, true democracy can start in your home with your children in a private setting. It doesn't have to be in a big vastness of the world, but yet we've allowed the leaders to be the example of what our children see instead of teaching them the democracy and how they should be treated in life. And so now we want a group of individuals to rise up and be the leaders in this great nation when we have not given them anything to. It's like sending a group of people out to war with no guns, only a helmet, and the fact that they can run for shelter from time to time to protect themselves. We haven't prepared them for what we're asking them to do, yet we continue to be frustrated with the direction they're going.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. We have to prepare them. The government of Uganda, they have spent billions and billions of dollars to brainwash, to change their mindset. Remember, these are the developing years. This is where they are supposed to develop everything they need. But that's why certain courses, they have to be deleted off the syllabus. They have to be lied to. But when we sit back here and just criticize, no. We cannot ask them too much when we know the challenge they are missing. I'll tell you, Ms. Brenda, if they had an environment, if they had people to see, to trust, if they knew somebody is behind their back, those youth would get up. Ms. Brenda, those jails, those state houses, torture houses that we have, they call them safety houses. It is ironic. Safe houses. They call them safe houses. You can imagine. Where they mutilate and cut and torture.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Women, men, anything you can ever think about, they do. But all these are beauty for the youth. Even those, you see there is bar after bar, club after club. You see these useless stories in the news, bad black. You see these youth are doing things that they can do everything, put everything in the news to make sure they attract, they mislead. They keep them busy in a certain direction where they don't gain anything. These things are intended, people.
And, you know, I have to say this very honestly, like the caller said earlier when he called in, and he was talking about the bill that's being passed right now for gay rights there in Uganda. It's another stab at the youth, because if we look at the gay community in Uganda, it is primarily youth. And I have to say this to make this point. Most Ugandans that are outside in the diaspora now are outside because of the fear of something. And a lot of them don't want to be a part of certain groups that are coming up to form to stand up against the government out of fear. That same fear that you have is the same fear that he's putting in the hearts of the youth in Uganda right now. Because I tell you, not only from the public management bill, as long as they're getting drunk and having fun in clubs, he doesn't care how many of them hang out together. But the gays are the same thing. Kill them, destroy their lives, put them in prison for life, so that the youth understand that we are in control and they're not. I just feel like it's another direction, another step in that direction. What do you have to say about that, Dorothy?
Well, Ms. Brenda, that is the same way. That is the same thing we look at. So they're going to look at these boys and girls, as we already know that they tell you that, oh, those who are being alleged to be, lesbian or gays, they have a lot of money. Where do they get these monies? What do they do? Of course, at the end of the day, they're going to, run into them. And purposely this bill is for, okay? If he knows around the globe, there are, some people with the money. There are people who have interest in such things. To support these people who are not protected. So he looks at that and he figures, how am I going to do this? How many can I put to prison? How can I get attention? Okay? That's when a man who started this bill in 2009, they stated how he had looked at it critically. Now he rushed to pass it. Now every blame is on the parliament because he's getting the hit back. The parliament passed the bill, they rushed it. I didn't look at it. I needed to look at it, and if I find some mistakes, then I'll correct it. I will turn it to the parliament. What kind of a liar is this?
Yeah, and it shows us the power of moving forward with this, because like Musana said when he called in earlier, the Western world has seen so many atrocities and so many things happen in Africa, and they haven't moved forward to help the people of Africa at all. However, when the gay bill comes along, and even the public management bill, and Robert F. Kennedy Commission gets on board, Human Rights Commission gets on board, and start filing petitions on behalf of the Ugandan people, then the world pays attention and they put pressure on Uganda. And we're saying that pressure needs to be put on in a lot of other areas, not just in these areas that are causing the atrocity, but in other areas as well, to help the youth forward.
It means, Brenda, that is the whole game, because there are people who have seen, people who have been abused, people who have been beaten, people who have almost faced the grave just because of what they do, people who never disturb anybody else. Okay, so it is their responsibility to stand up and support such people. And the president, or Museveni, knows exactly where to hit. He knows exactly what to do. That's why, for me, it is not, why would he pass such a bill in such a rush? Why was he lying? This thing was started in 2009. So that is where he's looking at. He's looking at these negotiators. He's looking for these movements who are to come in. He knows exactly what he's doing. One thing, he's targeting at the youth in Uganda, and he's looking at some kind of attention, how to play this game, and how can he benefit out of it. How can I imprison all these? Why would you imprison something for life? Why would you put somebody in prison for life? We have men who have stolen billions and billions of dollars. Eh? They are in prison given 4 years where they make $1 billion every month. Eh? But you want to put somebody in prison for life? I mean, God forgive me. But should be up to God to judge. So all these things are intended.
I think
but our youth have no say. Yes.
All right. Well, you are listening to Voice Uganda Radio, and I'm here, your host, Miss Brenda, along with Dorothy here at Freedom at Hand. We are going to take a quick break here at the end of the first hour, and we do encourage you when we come back from the break to call in and be a part of the conversation. So we're going to take just a few-minute break here. This is Miss Brenda with Freedom at Hand. Hello and welcome back to the second half of Freedom at Hand. I'm your host, Miss Brenda, with Dorothy here having a conversation on the youth and the example that we're trying to set and be for the youth there in Uganda, not leaving them hanging on their own, trying to figure out all of this the big bad wolf by themselves. Um, I want to talk about this a little bit, Dorothy, and you can feed in on this. One of the things that happened here in the United States of America when we started to have immigrants to come here to the U.S., one of the reasons that the immigrants' children have become so successful, and I mean they're successful around the board, and one of the reasons the youth have become, I mean, one of the reasons the youth of immigrants have become so successful, really no matter where they're at, whether they're in the U.S., whether they're in UK, whether they're in Canada, because we know when they immigrated, they went everywhere. But they taught their children why it was important for us to leave where we were at, the future that we wanted for you, the risk that we took, and the reason we were willing to take the risk for your life to be better, for your life to move forward, for your life to be better than ours. Do you feel like this is a conversation that parents in Uganda can even start to have with their children? Not even because they're not able to immigrate out, but why it's important to educate them, why they're sending them through the structure of where they're at. I mean, are the youth listening to their parents as leaders and role models to move them forward from their hard work and all the things that they're contributing to their children's lives? Or are the youth listening and being more influenced by what's happening out in the world around them? So comment on that, if you.
Yeah, Miss Brenda, this is kind of a tough, topic to comment on, but I will do my best. They have been people who are said, because when we talk about, we have to, the children who are born here, for the immigrants who have been here and born here, grew up here, they tend not to know much until they grow up later on and like, oh, mommy, where do I come from? Where is Uganda? Can we go back a visit? And there are those who have been visiting back and forth and they're really interested in their country. But we have these immigrants. Some of these children are sent here. Their parents are struggling. They are back home. We had a conversation sometime back on the youth program on Mondays. And a few callers, they suggested that as this brainwashing, Miss Brenda, it is real. As people get here, you can imagine what they have been seeing in Uganda all along. So when they get here, it is totally a different setting. And they have missed so much, okay, that they have to get lost for some time before even they start to do what is right. They act, it doesn't matter what their ages are, but they act below their reasoning capacity would have been if they were grew up here in America or if they haven't faced all these programs. Because so many people have complained that they do things like going to parties, doing ABCD, because the immigrants, most especially a few days ago, yesterday, I gave an example about China, Miss Brenda. The children of immigrants, when the Chinese send their kids here to come to school, even those who are born here, when those kids went back to visit, or when they went back in the holidays to visit China, they never took anything else, okay? In their luggages, they already had textbooks. They had books. They never allowed to pack jeans, sneakers. If they had anything of that sort, it would be, how do I make the best sneaker? Okay?
Yeah. How
do I come up with the best, jeans? How can I compete? Because in Uganda, we have a saying, if you grew up poor or you came up, you know who you are. You know what to do. That's what your parents tell you, that, you are going in America, but you remember who you are. You have to do ABCD. Don't forget your country. Don't forget us. There are so many chances over there. We need some help, such things. Miss Brenda, the Chinese children were taught so. They did that. And look where China is right now. Okay? So we have a challenge, but we have to lead. I'm sure the Chinese here, they did a fabulous job. And those back home, they had to be an environment. As much as China, their politics and everything, but they give room for such things to happen. But in Uganda, there is zero tolerance. There is this malicious politics that is going on. Okay? When somebody takes you over, when somebody takes your property, when somebody says the country I want it, all of these things, we have nothing standing, infrastructure, education, everything goes. And Mr. Museveni will tell you that the only job I have is the army. But whose children are in Somalia right now? Whose children are in Sudan? Whose children are in Central Republic?
Yeah, because
their children are here, going to the best schools they are available. When we talk about oil, means Brenda, the oil sector, you have to be from Rwanda, you have to be a Rwandese, you have to have a relative of the president to get that kind of scholarship to go study anything, getting close to oil. People are murdered because of oil money, everything that is going on. The Ugandan people have nothing, have no stake in their country. The youth, they will not see anything, even education.
Well,
they will not be told things that they are supposed to be because they will get smart.
Well, exactly. And this is the thing I'm saying. When I talked about the immigrants migrating out to wherever they migrated, because we know Ugandans are a part of that also, that there were families that fled, the whole families fled out of the country for a better life for their children. When I look at senators, when I look at congressmen, when I look at people who are in some of the leadership positions in this country, they're immigrant children. And they are immigrant children who are understanding the role that they need to play, not only in the United States of America, but how they contribute to the cause of what's happening in their own countries, bringing attention to those things. My family came out of the country for this reason or for that reason, and this is how I want to feed back into my community, being a part of wherever they feel like they fit within the sector. I say that to say this. We have a lot of Ugandans that are in the diaspora, and some of them are the most educated people in all of Africa. And we know the education that lives outside in the diaspora. And I'm wondering, as children of immigrants, because some of them grew up here because their parents came here when they were very young. And some, like you say, were gifted enough to be able to get the visas and stuff and get out. But what are the roles that we're playing in the communities in which we are to shed light on what's happening in Uganda? Because you know, and I know that some of them are in great position to become a part of Voice Uganda Radio, become a part of FADU, or to become a part of making a way forward for the Ugandan people on their own. You very rarely hear of Ugandans that speak up as to the atrocities and what's happening in their country on a platform in which the news and the media or just their community can pick up on that and start to support and rally behind that. So I say that to those who are in the diaspora. You know, we talk about, what are you guys doing? You're only on the radio talking, you're this or that or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, we all have responsibility to the country in which, your birth country in which you love. Whether it be being a part of what we're trying to do, or structuring and starting something on your own, or just being the voice that you can be. We got to stop hiding behind each other, and we got to stop hiding behind the fact that we don't feel like someone is doing or playing their part in the role in which they should. But we need to understand that we all have a role to play. And these are the roles that we're playing. So please come forward and tell me what the role is you're playing, so that we can be the example. Because one of the things is the Ugandan children, I don't think they can read anywhere in the news about a Ugandan as an iconic leader that they can look up to right now. I really don't think there's not a movie star, there's not a singer in the United States or abroad here that they can look up to and say, he did it, I can do it. You know, that is reaching back to lead the youth forward. How do you feel about that?
Ms. Brenda, that is a very emotional topic, and I have said it many times, and I'm sure those who have been listening, they might say, this, Dorothy she's, tough on us, she's being really harsh on us. But Ms. Brenda, one thing I can tell you, I was here when Osama bin Laden, they did hit the World Trade Center and all that kind of thing, 9/11, okay? I saw I mean, I see this every day. Where there is a disaster, let it be a tornado, let it be a climate, let it be a fire. A building goes off in fire here, apartment buildings. People run outside. You see people carrying milk, dog food, anybody in blankets. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
This is they call the compassion. But during 9/11, I saw what they call patriotism, the love of your country. You saw young men. They said enough was enough. There was no reason for this. They stood up for their country. They went to do what they were supposed to do. They went to defend America. I'm sorry to say, okay, I know in Uganda it's been one bad dictator after another. So many people have lost their relatives. And I wonder, because I have said it openly, that we are lacking in that way. We do. We do not know what we have. Either we have given up. Those who trade in Obote 1, when they came out of that, they said never, maybe. Those who also tried during Amin, when they come out, they said never again. Those who tried in Obote 2, they said enough was enough. People had so much hope in President Museveni. People were suspicious. At the beginning, they refused to support. They were not sure. But people came around, never asked questions, convinced them. The man is a cunning man. He did everything in his power to make sure, he get what he wanted to get. We have some weaknesses too. But people had so much hope because people thought this was going to be it. And over the past 10 years, the man would do his things like a chameleon, like a snake. When people had no idea, when people were killed by number of millions, put in the camps in northern Uganda, mutilated, cut, people in the central were dancing. Okay? So my thinking is that the Ugandans in the diaspora, have they given up? They don't see no meaning to defend Uganda at all. Because I would like to think that if you have a country, that is your country, however bad it is. If anything, if you get out of that rough and you come somewhere where it is safe, you do what all those beautiful people they have done. You do what Rosa did. You do what Tana did. You figure out, now I go back, how do I save my country? How do I save my people? But Miss Brenda, that is a tough question for me because I'm asking myself. I scratch my head and I'm like, why not? Because yes, it is true. We have so many doctors. We have lawyers. We have people in positions you wouldn't even think about. They are here. But what went wrong? Is it our tendency for us to say, who is that woman talking? Does she have whatever? How does she have a PhD? What is it? Miss Brenda, that remains a challenge. Unless they come out here. That's why I say, so long as all those people are sitting back there, they are not saying anything. They have failed to tell the children the truth. Because most people, they say, oh, well, I'm a citizen. Your citizen is here. What else do you want? But home is home. When we lose Uganda as we know it, that is it. You have no home.
I know, because if you think about it here in the United States of America, the minority is becoming the majority. And I say that for the Hispanics. The Hispanics in the United States of America have united together to bring the attention to the places that they love. They sit in Congress, they write in newspapers, they are doing things to move, not themselves forward here, but they want to bring attention and shine the light into their own countries. And this is what needs to happen in the Ugandan community too. That's why I said immigrants, because, when you immigrate to another country, you don't forget about your birth country where you came from. And you immigrated out of there for a purpose. If I immigrate out of the United States of America and no longer want to be here, there is a purpose behind why I feel the need to do that. And so there has to be a reason for why people wanted to do that. And that's why we talked about earlier with compassion. You know, one of our greatest leaders that we talked about and you and I both love dearly is Harriet Tubman. The woman got her freedom and moved forward, but she never forgot the treatment of the people who were still enslaved. And it was very, very important for her to continue to go back and forth for 13 years, freeing slaves out of slave states, because she understood and she knew the privilege in which they would have forward. It was a risk, and she could have lost her life at any moment, but we got to reach back. And that's why I speak to those in the diaspora with such compassion, because this is the drive of Harriet Tubman. It was not enough for her to be free. It was only going to be enough if she could go back and bring other people into the greatness of which she had discovered on the other side. I don't think it's ever a good thing when we leave we leave someone, like you were saying with the fires, and not 9/11, but just fires, because, the marketplace that just had the fires there in Uganda was a very sad event. And most Americans could not understand it, because the American belief on those fires that happened in the marketplace was more of the government was more interested in controlling the people than controlling the fire. And we didn't understand that, because that doesn't fit into the equation of compassion for what was happening to the Ugandan people. When there's a fire in apartment complexes or wherever throughout the United States, people run out of their houses with food, with blankets, with whatever they can grab and they can run out of the house with. And when you see them standing on the side of you see them standing on the side of the road, watching their properties burn, they are in that comforter or in that cover with someone else, with another neighbor. And they have food, and they brought snacks out for other kids that are going to be on the side of the road with nothing to eat as the day progresses forward. So there is a community where people run out of the burning houses, but they run out of it with help that they extend to other people that are in the same position that they're in. They don't look and say, well, you should have thought of bringing a blanket out. I mean, for crying out loud, it's the middle of the night and the house is on fire. They don't say that. They say, come, get under this blanket. It's cold. We're in our pajamas and it's cold. They're looking out for the other person. And those in the diaspora, we've talked a lot about donating to Voice Uganda Radio for satellite radio. And you know, Dorothy, as well as I do, that a lot of the reason for that is like the people who run out of the burning building. Let me take something out so that I can give back to bring comfort to those who are going to be in the same position that I'm in. I mean, because can we talk about that? I mean, really?
That is the question. What did you give God? Did you protect you to make it here? Because there was a reason for that. Yeah. You need to look back and extend that comfort to your neighbor. I mean, Miss Brenda, this is common sense. Okay? That's why sometimes I say that we are a little selfish. Because, Miss Brenda, we are so many that it wouldn't have been a big deal where one person or 10 people or 100 people, they feel so squeezed, doing the impossible. We are so many. Everybody, you chip in a little bit of it, and here we are done. But that question, I think it is something which comes from the heart. Okay? I'm sorry to say, the Americans have that. It does not even matter. In such times like that, that's why you see they lose their little differences. You see different political parties doing 9/11. They all agreed that America, nobody attacks America on their own soil. Okay? They agreed on that, and something was to be done about it. But yes, Miss Brenda, we have so many Ugandans outside Uganda. But what is it that we have failed to do the right thing? Okay? There might be some reasons, Some people have been scandalized. Yes. But when you fall, you get up, my dear. You get up. Because how many people have been robbed? How many times, some people's houses have been robbed. You just stop working because you figure out what to protect what you own. Isn't it in nature that way? You figure out a way that how am I going to protect that my family doesn't get attacked or my house doesn't get broken into again. You sit there and figure out a way how to do it. But Miss Brenda, that I know there are some Ugandans outside Uganda. They love Uganda so much that they can't even afford to call in Voice of Uganda Radio or send $5 or $10, not because they don't have it, but because they want to go back to Uganda. And they don't want to come near anybody who talk anything against the government. That thinking I do not know. You tell me. I'm building my house. Yeah. I need to go back to Uganda for Christmas. I need to be safe. Don't you think that is a little selfish for you to think that way and act that way? What about those who are in Uganda that you are not even thinking about? I'm not talking strangers you don't know, but your family and relatives, because you have your roots there.
Yes, yes.
See?
Yeah, and the root of the people, the root of the very people in the diaspora, their roots are very strong in the country, because if you think about most people who are in the diaspora, they are loners. They only know the people that they've connected and bonded with once they come to this country, and they may have married and developed relationships and have families with people that they met in this country. But the grassroots of who they are is in Uganda. And to say that I want to not be a part of something because it protects me, but what about the protection of the people of Uganda? Where do we start to stand, and where do we start to rise on the behalf of those people? Because Musana said it very plain and clearly when he called in early this morning, that this government is going to be here, it is going to rule, and it is going to dictate the way it wants to treat the people, the laws that it wants to pass, the things that it wants to govern, the pressures that it wants to put on people, and the way that it wants the international world to think about it, about their leadership. But we have the power to say enough is enough, and we need to change this, and we need to move forward. But I think just like the fear in those that are in the diaspora, there's fear in those in Uganda. And how do we move forward out of that fear? Because we understand and we know that fear is very, very controlling. And it controls us in either a good way or it controls us in a bad way. And which are the ways in which we're choosing for that to happen. A lot of people don't even realize that those who are in the diaspora, they don't even realize the protection that they have when they leave this country. If you are a citizen wherever you're at, whether it's the UK, whether it's Canada, whether it's the United States of America, you touch base with our embassy. I mean, you touch bases here to say, I'm leaving my country, I'm going to Uganda, I'm going to be there such and such time, I'm going to be back. Whatever, you touch base with the immigration officers or whatever there, or the embassies once you get there, you are as protected as you are in the soil that you walk on, no matter where you live in the international community. But I think fear has robbed even those who live in the diaspora, fear has robbed them of their rights and liberties and justices, even within the countries that they now call home. And they don't realize the protective shield that they travel out of those countries under. And if you move into those countries, you leave this country and you're over there and something happens to you, it will be questioned. It will be questioned on a large scale, because your country where you now live and reside is not going to tolerate one of its citizens being treated unjustly. Because at the end of the day, let's face it, Dorothy, whether it be you, whether it be any of the members here at Voice Uganda Radio that lives in the United States or Canada or Australia or UK, wherever we live, we are citizens in the country in which we live. And that citizenship bonds you to that country the same way it bonds people who were born in those countries. And I think so much of the fear of why they left Uganda, so much of the fear of why they live in the countries that they live in, that fear still controls them, that they don't realize that you're living in a true democracy, yet you're not taking advantage of that true democracy that you're living in. So the democracy that they want, that they have, they don't even realize how to utilize it to their favor.
Ms. Brenda, that's where we go wrong, because As you know, America in the 1800s, people stood up. When you get here and you see it and you love it, you know that some people have worked tirelessly to make it the way it is. You live here, it is comfortable, everything is good. People have worked. So many sacrificed their lives. Some people gave everything. Some people gave some. So, what do you think then? What do you think? Exactly that's what you are saying.
Yes.
If you want to be here, yes, because right now there are younger men and women dying out there fighting for the freedom you are sitting here enjoying. You are not even thinking to take it back to Uganda. When God protected you, when you are given a second chance, that's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And let me go to our caller who's coming back in again. Come on in, caller. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Miss Brenda. What you've been saying about the fear about that gripping Ugandans,
yes,
it is something that they have to overcome. And I want people to understand our history, the country, our history. Our forefathers and grandfathers, they are such brave people that they will not take nonsense in such things as what's happening in Uganda today. But for today's generation, especially the young ones, especially for us who are in diaspora, not brave people within the country in Uganda, because they have really put up a fight. But we cowards, we took off, and we left the country, never looked back. Anyone who's listening and not paying attention, I put in that category of being a coward. You have to understand that the politics of Ugandans, very, very few Ugandans that have participated to revive their country. To revive their country. Most of the governments that have been changed, or most of the regime change that have taken place in Uganda, they have come at the expense of other countries. Ugandans, we've been docile in the affairs of our country. If you look at the government, especially except the one that the first president, Mutesa I, was overthrown within the country by the government, by the government itself. So the government overthrew its very own. The government overthrew the government in Uganda. But the rest of the government we've had in Uganda have come through with the help of other nations. Ugandans have never participated to get changes in Uganda. And here we are. We have a man who has stood on our head, who has feed on, excuse me, that language. And we are still waiting for some other nation to jump in and help us. The world is changing. This business of getting another nation to come directly intervene is not more possible. The only way that could happen is that if that nation has blessed another nation to come and intervene. But if you look at the way now things are, people within the country, the citizens, they are taking matters in their own hands, and enough is enough. But I hate to put my fellow Ugandans who are outside the country, who are in diaspora, to be thrown into the category of being cowards. Because we are tired of people who are telling Ugandans we cannot do anything. Yes, Ugandans, we can do something. And those who can do something have come out. Voice of Uganda Radio, Federalist Alliance for Development and for Democracy and Development in Uganda will come out. All we are asking is participate. It's easier to be how can I say, be on the sideline and look at the game outside, outside the field. But this is your time, this is your chance to get this man out of the country. And believe me, from what I've heard, I don't know if the sources are true or not. The service is very thick, and most of the health and the medication or most of the treatment it's been getting is now no longer working, and that's why you see Museveni is bloated. If you look at Museveni, he's not a healthy man. From the appearance, he's not a healthy man. This man is going to die, not to be accounted for all the atrocities he has committed. From his appearance, you can tell something's wrong with the man. And he's going to leave a system in place that is going to rule us for the next 30 years. What's wrong with that, Ugandans? Especially people from the central, people from the east, the Basogas, the Itesos, the Kamajongos. Where are you? Why are you a spectator instead of somebody who can come and participate in the nation, in the political affairs of your nation? We do not want Museveni to die in power, and it seems Museveni will die soon, but he has left a web of corruption. He's going to leave a web of Rwandese ruling Uganda. Now, if you look at the situation, most people who say that they were born to rule, they are the Tutsis. They are saying categorically, without any fear, that we are born to rule. How did that come about? Because we let them, we let the situation get out of control. Just imagine the Tutsis telling Baganda that we are born to rule. That was 20, 40, 50 years ago. It was unthinkable. I'm not saying that a Tutsi who is born in Uganda cannot become the president of Uganda. But unfortunately, these people who are saying we are born to rule, they are Tutsis from Rwanda. Why not? Of course, they rule Uganda, they rule Rwanda, they rule Burundi. Kabira's mother is a Tutsi. So we have let the show go out of hand because of our inaction. We need to get together. And when I say we need to get together, you, the Ugandans, I personally, very tired of Museveni's rule. And because I'm tired of Museveni's rule, I've tried to do my best. If I die today, Miss Brenda, I'll die knowing, which I know now, that yes, I'll put my voice there. I'll put my 2 cents there to fight. I don't care if an elephant attacks me. I'll do my best to squash that elephant. But I don't think Museveni is that elephant, because Museveni is afraid of the population of Uganda. Museveni can only listen to the international community. And the international community has showed us where they stand in our struggle. They are not on our side. They are on Museveni's side. I want my fellow Ugandans to remember, we are going to die. Just like our forefathers did. The Kamlegayans, the Mekahungus, they died and left a nation that we are proud of. We are going to die, leaving the Hutus with a nation they are proud of. Shame on you, shame on me. Thank you so much, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Masana, for the heartfelt words there. Dorothy, really, what he's saying, the fear of this elephant lives in the minds of Ugandans. It's not a reality. It lives in our minds, and it's controlled us to such a point where we feel like we can't do anything. Anything we do, even on a
Hello?
Are you there, Dorothy?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got myself disconnected there for a minute. But anything that we do, whether it's on a large scale or a small scale, it's always something. I have to share because, like Dorothy had said earlier, we're we see this as being bigger than it is sometimes. And sometimes we look at the large vastness of it, and it controls us to such a degree that we don't do anything. And I use this example, and Dorothy can come in on this one in just a second. I look at the groups, some of the groups there in Kenya, and some of the things that they've done. And it was one step at a time. It was one day at a time, one moment at a time. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And the same thing's not going to happen here. We're not saying that we're going to wake up tomorrow in a new world and things are going to be great. We're saying it's a struggle, and we all need to be a part of the struggle. Whether it's in good ways or bad ways, you can hand out flyers, you can, contact people that you know, you can research things on the internet, and we know that social media is throughout Uganda, and it is absolutely everywhere, and there's no reason for the people of Uganda to be paralyzed in their fear anymore when there's so many things they can use social media to do. And that they're just not doing it, and that doesn't mean those that are in the diaspora, but those that are inside Uganda as well. Dorothy, go ahead and comment on that, if you will.
Miss Brenda, let us talk about fear.
Yes.
As it was well spoken, Miss Samson, we have no solution because our grandparents, they were warriors. They were fighters.
They were fighters.
First of all, yes, they went, it is now a mindset. It is more of a mindset problem than a physical one. Okay? Because we have seen people have came out in Uganda, we have seen people in the ground, people have changed, people they need help, they need support, they need direction, they need leadership, For me, I think there is more fear here in the diaspora. It is like the moment you make that, you jump, away from Uganda and you enter safe zone. My God, what do you do? Because I'm thinking people who are in this much share of protection, as you said already before on this program, we haven't taken no advantage to use it. It is anymore. Miss Brenda, how can you say that somebody's going to be here, you put it $5, $100, let it do whatever you want to do. And people think that Museveni is out there watching for them. People can't call in a radio show. Just Museveni will hear my voice. Isn't that more of a mindset problem than anything you can think about? Yes. We will have to let this fear go. So people are so timid that they have, how can you be such, that kind of insensitivity? They have done everything possible to the Ugandan people. But if you are in Uganda, would you like that to happen to you? I mean, this is a responsibility.
Yes,
this is a responsibility. You get,
Yeah, even like you're saying, even those that live outside of the country still live in fear.
I mean, people in Uganda, if people have stood up, you have seen the mayor. You have seen so many people coming up. We have seen those younger boys and ladies tear gassed and shot at and beaten. Their legs are broken. We have seen students from different colleges, including Makerere. Some of us dead. Others were been imprisoned over 7 years. When the message first came out, we don't even know where they are, Brenda. We don't even know if these students are alive.
Yes.
But we have to put fear aside. And we have to know that freedom does not come free.
No, it doesn't.
If we've been out here and we love it, people worked for it, people are fighting for this freedom, so we need to do the same. We need to come out of this fear. Okay?
I know.
One thing I know, yes.
Well, one of the things I wanted to share, and you can comment on this because we're going to be closing out here in just a few minutes. When slaves were brought over on the slave ships off of the shores of Africa, one of the first things that they started to do is they forgot which tribes they came from. And they started to say, shout out your name so we know who you are and tell us where you are from. So they started a bond and a brotherhood, even in those very moments on those ships, because one of the things they realized on those ships headed to America or wherever they were headed for as slaves, the only way they were going to survive is to know who they had the company of and that they had now to become one, forgetting about the tribes in which they came from. The other thing I wanted to share is this. The greatest leaders that liberated the United States of America into the great country that it is today are the ancestors of the Ugandan people. Harriet Tubman's grandmother came from Africa. Harriet Tubman, the woman who went back and forth into slavery to free people, her mother was taken from the shores of Ghana. So there are great, great, great leaders that have come out of the shores of Africa that made this country what it is today. So now that we've made this country what it is today, let's be thankful for that, and let's go back into that country, the shores of Africa, to say thank you by helping to liberate those who are still trapped. Because what happened is Africa was free, and those who were taken as slaves came into a country and were treated as slaves, but they fought. And the majority of those who fought were Africans that fought for the freedom of Americans. Now Africa is not free. So those who have been gifted to be here and be a part of this country need to go back into the shores of Africa to help liberate those countries back into wholeness. Go ahead and speak on that, Dorothy. I'll give you a few minutes, 5 minutes here, and then we'll go ahead and close out the show. But I want to speak on that, and I want you to speak on that, because it is the ancestors, like Musana just said, and you understand from what you're sharing. It is the ancestors that have not stood back, but stood up for its people.
Yes, Miss Brenda. First of all, I want to tell you that most of the callers on this radio come from the central, where this thing of ancestors, following your line, your roots, where a man can stand there and cite like a 5 or 10 generations back. You have a clan, you know who your grandparents were, okay? Miss Brenda, when the slaves, when they got here, most of the first thing they did is they made them drop their names, right?
Yes, that's the first
they were given, they made them drop their names. There was a reason for this. And when were they mingling and bonding so well, and their captors realized this, they had to separate them.
Yes.
Okay? They were all reason for these things, because they know they will get together, they will plan, they will do something unspeakable. Okay?
Yes.
So, I have seen people crying. I have seen people spending lots of money trying to go back to find their roots. Miss Brenda, why is that so? Yeah. You have seen people naming their children Kenya. They want them to have they struggle to make sure that they have a relation here. Where did I come from? Where are my grand ancestors? These things hurt. But my fellow Ugandans, if you have a country, if you have ancestors, if you have a clan, if you have roots, if you have a family in Uganda where you know that you are coming, please don't let it go. This is such an important issue. Harriet fled to safety, but she knew that what she had left behind, it was a great deal. She went back. I mean, Brenda, that's why I say this is from the heart. Because it doesn't matter. For me, I know where I go, if I go to church, if I go to work, if I go anywhere. The moment I open my mouth to talk, somebody turn around and say, Dorothy, where are you from? And I do not hesitate. I do not. But are we just going to wait until everything is gone? As we always say, oh, let us wait. Let us wait. What are we waiting for? Home is home. Uganda is home. The Chinese have done it. They came here, they struggled, they worked hard. I also, by the way, if you are a mother and you are on Voice of Uganda Radio today and you are listening, one thing I know, when mothers speak to their children, they listen. But please, you have refused to come in, to call in to the Voice of Uganda Radio, to bring your suggestions, but please talk to your children. Because it is those boys and girls who grow up and they say, but Father, where did we come from? Where is our home? I'm not saying America is not home. I'm not saying Europe is not home. But because you came from Uganda, you have roots there. And there are people there who their hands are tied. They are oppressed. They have no way out. I think it is a responsibility. I think it is the right thing to do. And we need to get on board. For you ladies and gentlemen who are scared so much to death, remember that there are people in Uganda who have stood up. Yes, some are dead, some are living, but I rather die a hero than a coward. No way. Uganda is worth fighting for. Therefore, for you ladies and gentlemen over there, educated as you may be, scared as you may be, tonight when you go on, in your bed, you need to think, what is it that make you refuse to help, refuse to support, giving a reason being that I'm building my home in Uganda. I need to go to Uganda on Christmas, therefore I will not participate in such activities. You need to ask yourself, is that selfishness? Is that fear? What is it? Because as we are speaking, Ms. Brenda, I know right now, Uganda, the government of Uganda does not embrace dual citizenship. So, if you are Ugandan, yes, and you have citizenship in another country, the government of Uganda does not recognize you. Now there is a law that is coming. We know they have taken properties from the people of Uganda who are in Uganda. Their land has been taken. Their houses have been taken. They offer to buy, people refuse. They take them by force. Now there is a law that's coming whereby if you are a citizen of another country, you do not own a property in Uganda. Therefore, for you ladies and gentlemen sitting back, building mansions in Uganda, very expensive homes, you go back because you don't want to associate with the FADU and Voice of Uganda Radio, any organization that are working so hard to defend our country and get it from the wrath of mafias and dictators. If you are sitting here today, well, you wake up after building that house, it is not yours. That land is not yours. So we need to think about this, and we come out of this fear. If it is selfish, it is a responsibility. Freedom does not come free. Therefore, we stand up for it. Free for all, justice, freedom. We fight for it. America did it so. Thank you very much, Ms. Brenda.
Oh, thank you so much, Dorothy, too. And, a lot of what Dorothy is saying rings out very loud and clear, and I know that we all get the message here. The thing that we have to understand and the thing that we have to know is I've talked about it on the American Connection. You may not be affected by what he's doing today, but it will eventually affect you. It will eventually affect us all. Like Dorothy is just sharing there at the end of what she was saying there. You may not own your own property in Uganda someday simply because you're no longer a citizen, and those properties can be taken away from you. The professor talked about it so beautifully yesterday with the Bill of Rights and how that Bill of Rights in the United States of America protects, and it protects and holds strong a lot of things. If I leave this country and go anywhere, what I have here is still mine. As long as I meet the requirements of the law to have whatever it is I have here, it is still mine. We also understand and know that there are a lot of laws in Uganda right now that need to be rewritten and changed. There are a lot of laws that no longer work for the Ugandan people, that they only work for the government, and that's not the reason those laws were set up and those laws were put in place. And there is just a lot of things that have been taken little by little, bit by bit. The time to get angry about what is happening in Uganda is now. Freedom at hand for the Ugandan people and those that are in the diaspora is now. Because what you have today that is you hold sacred and dear, you may not have tomorrow. At no fault of your own. It's just at the direction in which the government is moving at a rapid pace, and we are allowing it to happen. When we talk about urgency here at Voice Uganda Radio, it's not about us growing or us becoming bigger or anything. It's about moving the Ugandan people forward. Because please don't misunderstand Voice of Uganda Radio and FADU, the Federal Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda. It has nothing to do with the people who started the groups. It has everything to do with the Ugandan people and moving the Ugandan people forward. We become more and more powerful together as one than we do separate. It's like Dorothy just shared from the comment that I made about when we came over here from Africa on the boats as slaves. And the people started introducing themselves and where they were from and what countries they were from so that they felt the establishment of family. And what Dorothy went on to share when she fed into that is that there was a purpose and a reason why when they got here on this soil, they were given other names. And they were given those names and beaten into submission because it separated them out from the groups in which they thought they belonged. And that just made them plain, who they were and who they belonged to. We've got to drop our titles. We got to drop our districts. We got to drop the geographical aspect of where we come from in Africa. We got to drop our ancestry and how big and how small and whoever they were. And we have to give ourselves a new name today. And that name that we give ourselves is freedom. Freedom fighters as we start to move forward, as we start to progress as a country moving forward for freedom and justice for all. Because if we continue to stand behind the titles of who we are and why it makes us who we are and who we think we are within that and that we have the power to rule, it causes friction and it causes frustration. And in friction and frustration, there's never growth. There can never be growth in fear, friction, or frustration, ever. But in uniting and becoming one and standing for a common cause, which is to make Uganda the great country that it can be for all, is what we do. There are so many people in the diaspora that you have the rights and you have the freedoms to go in there and change the very trajectory of the course in which the country is headed. Who says that there shouldn't be dual citizenship in Uganda? Those of you in the diaspora that come through to liberate the country, those are things that can be voted in. Who says that you don't have rights to what you have in the country? You do have rights to what you have in the country. We can no longer allow one person to dictate how we all move forward. Even those of you who are outside of Uganda in the diaspora, there is too much fear that still lives outside of the walls of Uganda. And that fear feeds on the others who are outside of Uganda. It feeds on your families inside of Uganda. And may I say this, your sitting president understands and knows the fears that he's put into hearts of people. And because that fear is there, he has no threat of anything happening to him anytime soon. And he continues each and every day to continue to put that fear into the hearts of people. When you once and for all show this man that there is no fear in the people in which he wants to govern and rule, then he has to face his own fears. What is it that he is fearing? What is it that's controlling him? Why is he in a position where he feels like he has to project so much fear out? I say it's because he doesn't have to feel the fear within himself, that he spreads that equally throughout the people of Uganda. The youth are there. The youth will lead. The youth will follow. But what are the examples that we are giving to the youth outside of the country? What are we feeding into them to make them want to move the country forward, to make them want to stand and live and fight for what is theirs? Because at the end of the day, Uganda belongs to the youth. But how are we helping them to move forward? How are we in the diaspora, how are those of us in leadership positions helping them to move forward? I think all of you know that satellite radio is a big issue with Voice Uganda Radio this year because we know that we need to reach the masses of people, to start uniting the people together, to come together for the common good of the country, of the people of Uganda, not for the government, not for any of that. It all starts with the people and the direction in which the people want to go. We cannot all be leaders, but we can stand behind those who are great, we feel are great leaders, to move them forward to change the country in the direction in which it needs to go before it's too late. Like Dorothy was saying, these people feel like they were born to rule. And if this sitting president, something happens to him because of his health and he dies, he's already setting up a dynasty that these people feel like they were born to rule the country. So you end up with the same thing that you already have today. I tell you, my fellow Ugandans, we have to move away from that. I thank you so much for being a part of Voice Uganda Radio this morning, this afternoon or evening, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for the callers who were on board. Thank you so much for my co-host, Dorothy, who speaks with such compassion and love for the people of Uganda and for a country in which she loves dearly and a country in which she wants to see move forward. I pray so much that you continue to stay tuned to Voice Uganda Radio today. There are some other great shows coming up, and that you'll be a part of those programs. Thank you so much for being a part of Freedom at Hand today. I have been your host, Miss Brenda, along with Dorothy, saying thank you and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.